Everybody, welcome to More Books with B. Sharice Moore. I am your host, B. Sharice. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you checking me out every week. This is like my 15th episode, so I'm really excited about that. Thank you for those of you who have been there from the beginning, and thank you to all my new subscribers, and even thank you to those of you who drop in every now and again to see what I'm talking about. So, hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a great break. It's the holiday season, so I thought it might be a good idea to talk about which books are my picks for you for the upcoming holiday season. It's the season of giving, no matter what you celebrate. Even if you don't celebrate, you probably give somebody gifts at some point. All right. So this is still useful for you. So the next three episodes, I'm going to talk about books that I believe will be great gifts for your teens, for your preteens, and for your elementary school and preschool students. All right. So housekeeping, grab your pens, grab your pencils, grab your phones, whatever you need to take notes, because I want you to jot down what I'm about to say. Okay. So my first pick is Shadowshaper by Daniel Jose Older. All right. Shadowshaper. Now, Shadowshaper is the first book in a series. And the series is called The Shadowshaper Cypher. Okay, The Shadowshaper Cypher. So this is book one. Book two is called Shadow House Fall. And book three, Shadowshaper Legacy, will be available in January of 2020. All right. So again, The Shadowshaper Cypher. All right. It's a series of three books. This is book one, Shadowshaper. All right. Shadow House Fall is now available. That's book two. And book three, Shadowshaper Legacy, will be available in January of 2020. All right. So, first and foremost, I wanted to make it a point to be sure that I'm reading Latino authors. All right. It's something that I've been trying to do, and it's been something that I've been really committed to doing for quite some time. However, sometimes things just get in the way. I'm a teacher, I'm a mom. I've told you guys all about that. But that's really no excuse, but I'm here now. All right. So this book is a few years old. Its copyright is 2015. So as you can see, I'm pretty late. All right. But as they say, better late than never. So Shadowshaper is the story of Sierra Santiago. Sierra Santiago is a Latina teenager living in Brooklyn, New York City. And she basically discovers that her family, well, I won't say her entire family because that's not actually the case. Her grandfather, her ailing grandfather, who has just had a stroke, has been involved in a secret society almost. And the secret society infuses spirits with graffiti art, murals, music, all right, and stories. And so she finds this out um, pretty early in the book. You're introduced to these murals that are quickly disappearing throughout the city. And she has no idea why these murals are disappearing. She's an artist herself. And she goes on this quest to find out why. And she meets Robbie, a Haitian teenager, all right, who is also a phenomenal artist and muralist in Brooklyn. And they kind of sort of team up to try and unlock this mystery. So again, I don't want to give you a lot of spoilers, but one of the things that I love about Shadowshaper is that it's something that's so fresh and different um, than what I've read in speculative fiction. Um, I read a lot of speculative fiction. Fiction and poetry are pretty much my favorite genre and subgenres when you're talking about literature. And I read a lot of it. And one of the things that I really love about what Daniel Jose Older has done is he's created almost a new Brooklyn. I'm pretty familiar with Brooklyn. I'm from New Jersey. I graduated from Rutgers University, so I spent a lot of time in New York City while I was in college. And so I got to explore, different parts of the area. In fact, two of my best friends in college were both from Brooklyn. One of my homegirls was from Flatbush, and my other homegirl was from Crown Heights. So I went to visit them, and they were both West Indian. And just having that experience, I was really able to connect with the setting that Daniel Jose Older, the author, was able to create in Shadowshaper. One of the things I loved about it is just the richness. First of all, if you've been to New York City, you know that it is overflowing with culture, with color, with flavor, with spice, with pizzazz, like no other city in the entire world. All right, and I'm not extremely well traveled, but I've traveled, and there is no place on earth like New York City, and there's no place on earth like Brooklyn, New York. All right, there's just something about it. It's a gumbo of cultures and flavors and style. And that is apparent from the very first page. From the very first page, you get the one of the things that I really, really enjoyed was reading the Spanish dialogue. And Daniel Jose Older does a fantastic job of injecting these Spanish, quotes within this book. And I didn't feel like, oh gosh, I don't understand this. So I'm just going to put it down. I felt compelled to try to use context clues to understand what they were saying. I also felt compelled to try and attempt to look up what these words in Spanish meant in English. And I just felt like I was one with this landscape. It felt familiar to me. And I don't speak Spanish at all. All right. I learned French. So honestly, I really don't know much Spanish outside of counting and a few colors, to be quite honest. But again, he was a master at making me hear and really listen to this language, read this language, hear it inside my head, and want to know more about it. I was also really, really drawn to Sierra. I felt like I had taught her, you know. Um, I taught high school when I first began teaching. And I remember that experience is totally different from teaching middle school now. There's just a whole different rapport that I had with my high school students than when I was a much younger teacher than I do now as an older teacher with my middle school students who are much younger than me. And I just felt like she was like a little sister. And he does a fantastic job of really sculpting Sierra out of this clay that is it's so believable. She's a round character. She's a three-dimensional character. Um, she's inquisitive. She's unbelievably talented. She's confident, and she's also very, very human and prone to some mistakes, you know? And I like the fact that there was not a single part of this book that I could predict. There's some books that, even though I say they're great books and I come on here and I rave about them, there are parts of those books that I believe, were predictable. Like, okay, I knew that this was the protagonist was going to end up here at the end. And I can't say that about Shadowshaper. With every single chapter, and every new character that we meet, and we meet so many different friends and family members and extended members of the community in Shadowshaper that are all connected to Sierra in some way. Um, they just all added such color and texture to this book. And again, it was like something that I hadn't really experienced. And again, I never knew what decision Sierra was going to make next. I never knew uh, who she was going to meet next. And I had difficulty making predictions, and I like that. I like how unpredictable this book was from front to finish. So heavy throughout, as I said before, Sierra is a muralist. She's an artist, and her friend Robbie is also an artist. They're muralists, and this made me really want to dig into and think more about graffiti art. My husband is a graphic designer, and he often watches Netflix stories on abstract art. I think Netflix has a series called Abstract Art that we've both seen. And he's also, exposed me to several graffiti documentaries that I really enjoyed watching. So reading Shadowshaper really made me want to know more about the culture, because graffiti art is a culture. It's not just an art. To say that it's just an art would not be doing it any justice. So I thought long and hard about an activity that I could design for your children, for your students, that would really give them an understanding of that culture. And so I came across a couple things. First of all, I came across an artist, a female artist named Lady Pink. Now, Lady Pink is an Ecuadorian American graffiti artist and muralist. And she was one of the very first female artists displaying her work on New York City subway trains in the early 1980s. So, in the description section, you're going to see a short documentary in her own words about the things that she's had to deal with as a female graffiti artist, a Latina female graffiti artist in the early 80s, and even now, because she still is a muralist now. And her story is absolutely phenomenal. I'm also going to add a link to her website because her work is breathtaking. And as I read Shadowshaper, I thought of Lady Pink. I thought of Lady Pink. It was the connection was there. And I don't know if Daniel Jose Older, did that intentionally. If he didn't, all I have to say is wow, because I immediately thought of Lady Pink. And I started to let me make this clear. I started to research graffiti before Shadowshaper. But even after finishing Shadowshaper, I knew that I would pull Lady Pink into whatever I did with my students and whatever I did with, sharing a mini lesson with you guys. So that's in the description section. I also have a link to a tutorial on how to make your first bubble letters. All right. So if you know anything about graffiti, you know that the bubble letter is like the basic building block of graffiti art. All right. So I have a link there. And I'm also thinking about asking students to create murals on a smaller scale, and to create these smaller scale murals, um, create them with mythology in mind. So, Shadowshaper, and once you read the novel, once you begin to read the novel and really truly get into it, you recognize all of the themes that Daniel Jose Alder has married in this text. So, you have music, of course, you have art, you have storytelling, but you also have spirituality. All right. And you also have this underlying themes of deeply spiritual, um, native practices. And it's woven perfectly, flawlessly throughout the entire novel. Okay. So ask your students, your children, to create a smaller scale mural. All right. And ask them to maybe marry some of your mythological creatures and mythological gods and goddesses from the Caribbean and from Central and South America with those drawings. So I'm going to give you three links, and I hope that doesn't sound too vague and a little bit out there, because it kind of sort of is. But I'm going to leave some links, and the links will be to some mythological creatures, and myths from Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. All right. And I will also, so I'll probably focus on Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic. I'll focus on those places. And I will also have the bubble letters tutorial, and I'll also have the link to the Lady Pink documentary. as well as, what else am I going to do? I'm also going to link you with uh, some fables that I can find, some mythology. Because first and foremost, please understand that Shadowshaper does borrow a lot from mythology. All right, at least in my opinion. I hope I'm not getting this wrong. All right, but it borrows a little bit from mythology, so you have that speculative element that is apparent from the first page. Okay, so I hope that this wasn't a a confusing episode for you. I just want you to make sure that you check out Shadowshaper, check out the Shadowshaper Cypher. Remember, Shadowshaper Book 1 is right here. Shadow House Fall is available, and Shadowshaper Legacy will be available next month in January 2020. All right. That's right. I'll also link you to Daniel Jose Older's website. All right. So I would recommend this for high school students. I do not believe it's a middle grade novel at all. It is a YA novel through and through. And again, share it with students that are interested in art, students that are interested in music, students who are interested in reading something that they haven't yet. And again, Daniel Jose Older is a Latino author, and I want to make sure that I highlight more Latino authors on this show because it is extremely important that our children are exposed to as much diverse literature as possible. And again, Shadowshaper is a phenomenal novel. I can't wait to read Shadow House Fall, which is, hopefully, I'm going to pick that up within the next week or so. All right, I have so much to do, but I definitely want to pick that up. And of course, I'll be picking up Shadowshaper Legacy in January when it comes out. So, anyway, a little bit long winded today. I'm so sorry. Thank you all so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, like, comment, share, subscribe, like, comment, share, subscribe. And I will see you next week with my next pick. And next week, it will be a graphic novel. All right? A middle grade graphic novel. So thanks so much again. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care.